Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Listen and Learn with Izu from Renegade. Izu's basically going to walk us through... Hello. Izu's going to walk us through the Renegade FC team that he's created. If you didn't know, we sponsor Renegade FC, front of shirt sponsorship, which Izu will explain later. Izu's been a part of our fan intelligence network for about 3.5 years.
Roughly,
ish. One of our earliest members. If you want to take it away.
Sure. Cool. Thank you. Hi, everyone. As Callum said, my name is Izu. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to allow me to come and speak to you guys. And it's good to see a few, familiar faces and to meet others that I haven't met before. As I said before, my name's Izu. I started Renegade Football Club maybe about officially 1.5 years ago, but in my heart of hearts, it's been going for about maybe 5 years or so. I thought because it's technically been very new, the best place for me to really explain to you what this is about is to go right back and tell you my story to begin with. Do you want to run the next slide? Really basic stuff to begin with. We're based in East London, and the fundamental goal, at its most core, what we're about is trying to facilitate social mobility through sports. And what that basically means is, I remember it must have been right after lockdown, and I was sitting at one of these job fairs, going speed dating for jobs basically. And I was in front of a charity, and they asked me, so what's the biggest problem that you think that your community faces or people your age faces? And I sat there and I thought, well, to be honest, most people that I know that are my age in my community are still stuck in the same situation that they've been in for as long as I've known them. And I feel like there's just been this eternal, almost like a poverty trap where it's hard for me to really describe my area in terms of, gangs and drugs and this, that, and the third, because yes, all those things are present, but I think when you grow up there, you don't really notice it so much. And so it just becomes part and parcel of life. And so it's only because I moved out quite a lot, which I'll go through, that I realized that ultimately that the environment in which these people are stuck in doesn't really help facilitate them in where you want to get to in your future careers. And I feel like, I'm a nerd, so I like to read a lot of random studies and stuff. And one of the biggest things I look at when it comes to specific my generation is that for the first time in the last 100 years, our generation is doing less off than our parents are. And so when I sat there for a moment, must have been, again, just after lockdown, I thought there must be something that we can be doing as a community to help facilitate people in those sorts of scenarios. How can we best enable those things? And again, people that I'm around the most, we love football, we love music, we love sport. These are mechanisms that we use in which to just express ourselves, but also we hope to make money from. All of us see the Marcus Rashfords and the whatnot, at the real sharp end of the spear, making the big differences, making the millions of dollars and millions of pounds, changing the world. But ultimately, there's a lot more space for just random ordinary people to have random ordinary lives doing things that they love. And so that's where Renegade comes in for me anyway. I really wanted to be able to provide that space for people who really care about, and on a global scale, really care about sports. But right now it's just football because I grew up playing that from a young age. It's the language I know the most, but my dream is for it to go beyond football, rugby, tennis, football, encompass as many sports as I possibly can, and just again help provide a link between grassroots through to development into the professional game. And that can be as an athlete or a coach or as an executive in marketing, nutritionist, physio. That's essentially the what that we're about. Currently, we just operate a men's team. We play a regional league. It's called Essex Alliance League, Division 1. Yay. It's not where we wanted to be in the beginning, but it took me about 1.5 years just to get it off the ground. And I realized just jumping through red tape in and of itself is a fucking pain in the ass, man. God, but I'm happy that we got it started. And so, in the future, I'm looking to establish a student athlete program. This is specifically aimed at right now 16 to 19-year-olds, that kind of A-level age. But technically, if you wanted to, I can offer a sports coaching undergraduate degree via Renegade right now, but no one's currently on that program just because I haven't managed to put these facilities in place. Apologies, I've got really bad hay fever. For my nose, it's absolutely blocked up right now. So just around the next one. So this is little Izu. don't ask me about the floor. I don't know why there's no carpet there, right? But I grew up, I was born 1994 in East London, son of Nigerian and Irish immigrants in an East London borough called Newham, specifically in an area called Stratford. And at the time, there was a really, really big immigrant community there. I mean, to be fair, there still is, but, over the years of various forms of gentrification and, the Olympics moved in and stuff, so things have really changed over the years. But I feel like the most important thing that I want to leave you with in terms of my youth is just, I feel like most of us, when we go through our childhoods, we're all faced with different forms of struggles. And my parents split up when I was 6 or 7. And again, I don't know if many of you are familiar with like Nigerian culture, but I'm the oldest son. And so that's held a certain level of responsibility just in the eyes of my dad. And obviously when you're 7 years old, my dad's my hero. But they didn't have a particularly amicable separation. And so bouncing between the two at times, I kind of felt like almost one part tennis ball, one part cannonball, where I would land somewhere, cause an absolute mess, and then leave. And I say that because I put a little maps here. So I was born in London, and then I moved from Stratford to Forest Gate, from Forest Gate to Waltham Forest. Then I moved from Waltham Forest down to the South Coast and Hastings. That's your second diagram there. Lived there for about 3 years. Then I moved from Hastings to that little green patch right in the middle of Ireland. It's called County Offaly in the town called Tullamore. Lived there for about a year. Then I moved back to London. Then I moved down to Brighton for 3 years. Then I moved back to London. And so by the time I had gone from, first starting school to university, I'd gone to St. Francis, Sacred Heart, St. Richard's, Closter Column, Rokeby School, Barking Abbey Sixth Form, and I finished unis. That's 7 different academic institutions. And just growing up in that sort of environment, it's hard to really to grow roots. And I feel like most people face the struggles in a different way. And for me, again, going back to that turbulent childhood, constantly moving, finding new friendship groups, having to bounce around different environments, going from London to Hastings, which in of itself was a culture shock, you have no idea. And then moving back to London, and then going to Ireland, and again, when I say Ireland, I mean like farms and bogs and cows and slurry. And I know that probably means nothing to anyone, but like just waking up in the morning and smelling cow shit is an experience in and of itself. But again, I could walk from one side of my town to the other in about 20 minutes. That's how small it was. And I then moved back to London where it's 20 miles across. So again, like it's finding that core, understanding who you are, that basis, the essence of your person was a really difficult challenge for me. And I feel like, again, growing up, those things, exhibit in different ways. And the biggest problem that I had by the time I left, I got to university, was I had no idea who the hell that I wanted to be. All I had known was that I love football. Do you want to run the next slide? And so I spoke about all of the places I lived. This is every single club that I've either played for or trialed at. This ranges from Cowley Boys right at the top. That was the very first club I ever played for in my life. And there's Nigerian under-16s when I managed to get a call up for 2 weeks, which was an incredible experience. I mean, playing for Nigeria in and of itself was just, an incredible achievement. I actually played in the same year group as Kelechi Iheanacho, who's currently at Leicester City. I went trial at Aalborg and Copenhagen, who were a Champions League team at the time. And then I moved back to college. And then I was at Braintree, which is a really high-level non-league team, and went to university. And I was at loads of non-league teams, and Shamrock Rovers, which is back in Ireland, and then back to Brighton again. Then I'm off in Lithuania, 2nd division, and I'm back to Brighton again. Then I'm off to Spain, and I'm back in London again. And then I'm in Cyprus, and I'm all over the place. But if there was one thing that if you'd asked me as that little kid, I mean, maybe a bit older, you probably couldn't talk then, what I wanted to be, I would have said 3 things. I wanted to be a Jedi, because, I mean, who doesn't? I wanted to be an inventor. I'm a nerd, like I said before, and I wanted to play football. When I crossed those white lines, the level of peace, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, I don't know if you go to the gym and that's your stress, you work out and you feel like, I feel good now. But no matter what was happening in life, no matter the fights I had with my parents, the fights I had with girlfriends, the fights I had with anyone else just on the street, just the absolute craziness that I'd be running around in. You cross those white lines and it's me against you, 1 versus 1, my team versus your team. Life is so simple. I'm going to put the ball on the back of your net more times than you put it in mine. And that for me is where football comes from. That is my language. That is what I understand more than anything else on the face of the earth. And it's something that, I hope to do for the rest of my life, hopefully anyway. That's the plan. Do you want the next slide? So, again, this is where I want to bring in Renegade a little bit more. I feel like during university, Izu, by the way, is not my real name. Well, it is. It's not my first name. My full name is Okute Sean Izuchukwu Chukwelomna. That's my full name. And Izu is a name that I actually stole from an uncle. Again, in Nigeria, everybody's older than you is your uncle. So I had one of these uncles stay at my house. He was called Izu. He was a professional footballer back in Poland. And I was like, you know what? I like that name. I really do. And it is technically my name. My surname is Izuchukwu. So that's where I took it from. But when I went to university, I had made a commitment to myself that the past was the past. And we can grow up excusing our current mistakes, our current attitudes, our current beliefs, you know, and blame it, oh, my parents messed me up when I was younger. Oh, you know, it's this, that, and the third. But I said, you know what? I'm gonna create Izu, and I'm gonna be everything that I wanted to be. I want to be the person that the 10-year-old me would have looked at and be like, you know what? That's the guy that I respect. That's the guy that I like. And it took several years of kind of discovery. But at the top here, it says Greco-Roman Stoicism. Now, bear with me. Like I said, I'm a nerd, right? I really am. And so throughout my college years, I spent a long time just discovering philosophy and, well, theology, because my parents are super religious. And bouncing between different forms of societies. I'd be going to churches here, exploring, you know, this, that, and the third. And the one thing that I really settled on was something that actually existed 2,000 years ago, and that's a form of Stoicism. And it's not the kind of like toxic masculinity, you know, bury your feelings type of Stoicism that I feel like most of us will associate with the word. But essentially what it means is just being able to find peace in your chaos. And if there's one thing that I can describe that my life has been so far, it's just been a fuck ton of chaos. And so going from there, that's kind of the intrinsic person. Then we look at the extrinsic, how we're going to interact with other people, what we want from, you know, our experiences, and that's where we landed the Ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese philosophy, and it basically translates to find your purpose. And it asks you three things: what you're good at, what do you love, what does the world need, and what makes you money. And if you can find something that, you know, essentially incorporates all of those things, you've essentially found your Ikigai. And in the middle of all those overlapping, for me, that's how Renegade sits. The last one here is Kierkegaard's Spheres. And Kierkegaard is a Danish philosopher who I don't advise that you read, to be honest. He's super dense and super dark. But he's got three spheres of life. One is your aesthetic sphere, which is the aesthetic. What can you see? What can you feel? What can you touch? Your material world around you. Your second one is your ethical, which your beliefs, your systems, you know, what do you respect? What do you align with? And the last one is religious. Again, that part, again, he's really dark. So I'm going to skip on for that one. But again, so I kind of, when I was in my second year of uni, I remember vividly, actually, I was sitting in my library, and then I was just trying to decide, okay, I recognize the fact, I'm 21 years old now. I'm probably not going to play Champions League football, despite the fact that, okay, I may have a national team call up. I can say that I've tried out a Champions League team, but really and truly, if I'm going to be really honest with myself, the journey that I'm on now doesn't quite align with the vision that I had before. So what do I want to do now? What's my next step? And so that's when I kind of figured out my own version of what my Ikigai was. And that was 5 things. Something that makes me money, because it's a capitalist world. I've got to pay bills, I've got to put a roof over my head, I've got to put a fly shirt on my back. Do you know what I mean? Something that keeps you healthy, because without body, do you know what I mean? My grandmother passed recently, and she had cancer. And if there's one thing that really hit home, it's just like, this woman was active, 90 years old, and driving up and down the country, looking after my brother in Cork, and then my other brother in Belfast, and then her 6 siblings in all over the place. But 90 years old, and this woman was like a ball of energy. And then just to see her like completely reduced by cancer, that's again, I pray that on no one, but that's a really scary experience to see. And so, yeah, that's why, again, this is in order, by the way. So that's why health comes second. Your third one is happiness, because, I mean, once your body's taken care of, you have to look after your mental state. You have to ensure that the relationships that you're with are the ones that you value. And I'll be honest, I don't quite like the word happiness there, because happiness to me is something that is transient and short term. For me, it's more about fulfillment. Like, I can see a lot of your faces right now, and just walking around the office, it looked like you guys are a great bunch of friends. And that's a great thing to see, because I've worked in a lot of places, and trust me, it's not the case in most environments that I've been in. So this, for me, is a really amazing environment to be in. The fourth one, sorry, is your curiosity. And I think this might be something that's specific to me, but I've never been somebody who's been able to sit still for very long. Maybe it's because I've moved around a lot growing up. And But I've always described myself as a high novelty seeking individual. So I love new environments, meeting new people, learning new things. I mean, I'm an introvert at heart, but that won't stop me from reading a book or listening to a podcast or, watching a documentary. And so I will always look to expand different, aspects of what I can learn. I mean, right now I'm learning coding. Don't ask me why. I just thought, you know what, why not? And that was it, really. And the last one, it says return. And that relates to what the world needs. And do you want to run the next one, the next slide? And so, yeah, that's where Renegade sits for me. For me, obviously right now it's only a couple of years old, and so I can't really call it a business yet. It's still a passion project, but I hope that it will become something that becomes self-sustainable. And like I said before, I'm going to comment later hope that manifests. But ultimately, again, I'm trying to facilitate social mobility through sports, which means that it can't just make money for me, but anybody who comes in contact with the organization. And that's what's really important there. Again, health, it's football, it's sport, daily activity. I believe that, exercise is a fundamental right. It should be free for everybody, regardless of what you're doing. It really irritates me when you go to a gym and it's like, maybe because I want to go and start doing MMA. Again, just something new I thought I'd try, and it's £100 a month. And I'm like, bro, maybe later. Do you know what I mean? Maybe later. Curiosity, again, I don't want to bore you with details, but I spend most of my journey on the way up just looking through Twitter, looking at all the various different blogs and reading sports analysis and data analysis on Bayern Munich's game against Man City last night. Won't bore you with the details. Again, happiness. In football, this is a tricky one. I mean, you win some, you lose some. The highs are very high, the lows are very low. But I think if you can thread the balance in between, you're in a really good place. And then what does the world need? Again, going back to my earlier point about trying to, facilitate a social mobility through sports. And so this is the way I see it. It starts from the community first, then development, and then performance. So community, the goal there is, five-a-side leagues, just trying to get in front of as many people as possible and provide free exercise, free sport at the point of access. That's the biggest part for me. And I've had a lot of conversations about, merging or collaborating or this, that, and the third. But for me, if I can't guarantee that somebody can just rock up with, whatever they have and get involved, it's not really worth the time, because I don't want to put a price point as a barrier to entry to sport. I mean, your health is so important. Like I said, I experienced with my grandmother. I just feel like, if you don't exercise, you don't eat healthily, you don't engage in positive relationships with other people, your quality of life is severely diminished. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, when you go to the world beyond, what you're really left with. Then development. This, spell that wrong, ignore me. But that's where the biggest conflict with money comes in, because in order to provide those developmental experiences, you need to be able to provide a certain level of facilities that obviously right now we don't have. But at a later date, I'm working with the council trying to get a property that we can look to redevelop and these sorts of things. But ultimately, I want to be able to do that for men, women, and disability, because again, across the board, that's the goal. And the final point there is performance. And so I want you to imagine like a tree. A Renegade football club, a Renegade rugby club, a Renegade tennis club, or athletics club sits at the top. That's their platform to be able to display what they've learned, adapted to the world. And then, yeah, obviously it's designed to act like a pyramid. So yeah, this maximum exposure, selective exposure, specific exposure. And finally, on the right-hand side is Renegade Sports Group. I feel like if anybody ever tries to convince you that football is a good business to make money from, they are absolute liars. Yeah, I'll tell you that right now. Absolute liars. I mean, it's a fact. 80% of football clubs are insolvent. If they had no money coming in right now, they couldn't pay their way for the rest of the season. It just doesn't happen. And again, that's more a function of the business incentives. Sorry, because for example, let's say you're a championship team, you're trying to make it to the Premier League, right? But the Premier League can attract all of the best players. They can pay the biggest wages. So in order to compete with those players, to attract those type of players to your team in the league below, you need to pay a comparable wage structure, which you can't do on a championship budget. And so obviously you spend more than you have in the hope that one day we're going to get there, which will then pay back the losses that we made. But 3 teams go up, 21 teams don't. What happens to the rest of the 21? Pissed. And if you look at Derby, for example, that's what happened there. I mean, they recently had a very difficult situation, and it was that simple scenario in which they tried to spend more than they had, got to the playoffs, got knocked out. 2 seasons later, they were forced to sell. forced into administration, and it's difficult. So for me, I sat there and I thought, okay, so what does football do well? Like, what is it good at? And this is probably where it relates to all of you guys, and that it's a great advertising vehicle. Like, it's excellent at getting eyeballs. And so my plan was to essentially use Renegade, or the platform Renegade, the exposure that Renegade gives, and then spread that across a group of different complementary services. So Sankofa there on the right-hand side was basically when I spoke about the student athlete program, that's the vehicle that I want to use. And so say, for example, you had a player that comes in. Right now, Ibrahim, he's my club secretary. Oh, he's got a little picture there at the end. But he's doing psychology, sorry. He's studying psychology right now. He either wants to be a teacher or he wants to go into HR in some capacity or form. And I was like, well, great, because if Sankofa was there as an academic institution that provided academic services to people within the Renegade structure, he could immediately slide into that role the second he graduates. That's the plan that I had. Sanctus at the bottom, that's what I'm planning to be, some sort of sports apparel business. So aside from all this other stuff, I do a lot of designing. So I've designed all our kits, I've designed tracksuits, I've designed clothes, I've designed graphic video, I've done a lot of stuff. And so Sanctus for me was a way in which that, okay, rather than pay somebody else to make my product, why don't I just do it myself? It's cheaper, right? And again, fashion is a big part in football, and all of my players love fashion. And so I thought, okay, why don't I leverage their interest in that and say to them, okay, listen, if you can come up with a great design, I'll make it for you, market it for you, and then we can share in the profits. And again, it's just a way in which, I can take their interest and slide it into something that enables them to make money from what they like within the Renegade structure, and they can enjoy it. Ignis Amoris is a freelance digital marketing business that I ran pre-lockdown, which is where I did all of my graphic design, video, some short form documentaries, that sort of thing. And so again, right now, Fred, our social media manager, he's really interested in wanting to be a producer. So I said, look, I can start Ignis and Morris back up. What we're going to do is we're going to, I don't know, like book a space, get 5 or 6 artists in. We can do 4 or 5 videos back to back, and you can use that as experience and learning how to produce these sorts of things. And then when you go off into the world, you've got this catalog of experience and say, you know what, I can step into these environments and I can produce low budget music videos or fashion shoots, because obviously we need to produce some marketing content for Sanctus and whatnot. But again, this is why I call it sports group. Renegade might sit at the top in terms of being the most visible aspect of it. And it's just designed to draw people in. Okay, you want to play football, you want to play sports, cool, what else do you want to do? Because ultimately, if that doesn't work out, what happens next? And then you've got this whole other structure there that also feeds it economically, because once these entities start making money, they can feed it back to Renegade, and it creates a virtuous loop, a virtuous cycle. And that's the grand plan, yeah? Keep it to yourself. So yeah, in the future, as I mentioned, a development team, women's team, and the Renegade ecosystem. And like, it's still early days, and so I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that plan looks like. But if there's one thing that I have learned, or rather one thing that I'm comfortable in, is chaos. And that right now is chaos, because I don't know where I'm going next, but it's fun, and I'm enjoying the journey anyway. Last slide for me, please. And so, yeah, right now, these are the 4 main people that are involved in making Renegade run. There's myself. There's Vincent. I've met him at university. He's probably as much of a nerd when it comes to football as I am, and he helps do the coaching sessions and deliver various aspects of the actual technical delivery of the sessions itself. Ibrahim, who I mentioned before, he's my club secretary. He's been a rock. And then Fred, social media manager. The thing is, he's 17 right now, so he's in college, which, again, in terms of our age demographic, it's very, very young. Most of the people that are with us are either in college or in university, and there are very few people that are like maybe 23 and older. But again, I do that intentionally because I feel like those people need the most help. They don't really, again, I feel like those of us that have been in university, you realize that they don't really teach you the world. Sure, you've got like the theoretical knowledge that you get from there, but in terms of figuring out what happens next, that's really up to you. And that's, again, the bridge that I want to fill. And it's been great having him there as well, because at the start of the season, there was an opportunity for us to try a bunch of different stuff, just in terms of trying to find new partners, or like, partners is the wrong word, but ways of generating exposure. And there's a football team, I'm sure most of you heard of, called Beatties. He was running a competition to do like a grassroots academy in collaboration with Samsung. And so I thought, you know, why don't we enter it? So I spoke to Fred and he was like, yeah. I said to Fred specifically, listen, if we do this, you're the one to take the lead on it, because really and truly, I'm trying to run a football team and I can't be fucking around with like running here, there and everywhere. So listen, if this happens, it's on you. And he's like, yeah, cool. And then, so I made a little video, which I really should have put in there. My apologies. But that, you know, and we entered and we were successful and we was part of the whole process over the course of a year. I mean, a year. It was maybe like 4 or 5 instances of interactions over the course of maybe like 10 months or so. And so, yeah, I mean, he loved it, to be fair. And I feel like now that he's got this idea, I mean, from that, he got connections to the Beatty's media team. He might go work there for a little while as an internship. And to be honest, those are the connections that I'm trying to build. I feel like a big part of it for me as well is also being able to make sure that in every relationship that I get, it's more about being able to facilitate the next group of people coming through. So yeah, that's that. Any questions? And I did all that looking at my notes. Sure you can.
The people at home. My question was just, how big is the Renegade family? Into this, obviously these 4 and you'll have the team, but how many people are involved at every level?
In terms of the key people involved, right now it's just those 4. That being said, it's a weird one because there's always a conversation being had. Whether that goes anywhere or not is a different question entirely. So if you ask me again in a month, I could say, oh, there's 3 more people involved. Or I could say there's 2 less people involved. But right now it's those 4 people that I'll say are the core to making it work. Actually, no, there's actually one more. There's a kid called Adam. He wants to be a football coach. And so he's come on as an analyst, just in terms of like looking at our games. What he does is when we can, we try to record all of the games, and then he will go through it, make these really cool slides, just look at pro points, con points, what could you better, and he will go and have one-to-one conversations with certain players who really want to who are looking to push on, and just give them little aspects of their game that they can work on. And so yeah, there's 5 of us that are involved right now. All players, again, tricky one because the turnover can be quite high. And so I would say in terms of the core people that are involved on a week in, week out basis, maybe about 14. But over the course of the time it's been running, we've had at least 70, 80 people come in and out. Either just short term or, you know, been for like 6 months and disappeared again. But one thing that I'm really proud of is that we've had I think 6 players over the course of the 2 years that have come, spent a few months and then moved on to paid football roles. They're being paid to play football now, basically. Whether it's 40, 50 pound a game or 120 pound a game or whatever, every story like that is important to me. And so, yeah, it's difficult to put a number on it. It's a short answer, really.
What can brands, do you think, do more to help support grassroots football teams like Renegade?
And thank you for your question. So I'd say, you know, after doing a year with the Samsung, because their whole mission statement was, well, the story that they told us was this. Ultimately, in America, right, you've got college sports and everybody supports their local college team, and they've also got a professional team that they support. And so what they were trying to do is trying to replicate that sort of environment within the UK. And so I feel like the biggest thing that brands can do is just give more of a platform just to smaller clubs, especially community clubs, because ultimately the chances of you rocking up and being able to be legitimately involved at Tottenham, I support Tottenham, or United or Arsenal or Liverpool is minuscule. Maybe if you're a kid, you can go be a mascot or something. But with a non-league team, you can rock up and on the day become a volunteer. That can be in football or whatever sport you love, because grassroots teams, regardless of the sport, they're always looking for volunteers. Always. There's never a shortage of roles, of just opportunities to get involved. And so, but people, I feel don't realize A, that they can do that, or B, who these people are, because they simply don't know. And so I feel the biggest thing brands can do is just help with the exposure. And again, it's a two-way street, because the more brands are seen to be doing that, the more they can be seen to be, the people's brand, as it were. And I guess that depends on the brand. I don't know if Louis Vuitton is going to be interested in something like that, but do you know what I mean? But I feel there's, because what they don't normally do right now is they do these grants. Like Tesco, I've got like a £500 grant for grassroots teams, but it's great, but really and truly doesn't really do much to help the club other than, you know, help pay for that 1 month of whatever the grant it covers. And so I feel like the biggest thing they can do is, again, just help increase the exposure. Maybe, if anything, just tell the stories of people that are just doing amazing things, because yeah, there are a lot of people doing amazing things at grassroots clubs, again, regardless of the sport. So yeah, that's my thing for brands.
My question is about I mean, I love the fact that you're connecting people with growing skills and teaching them stuff beyond football, and it's really exciting. I'd love to hear more about it. But what's the demand? Like, what is it? What kind of skills are people wanting? What are they interested in? What I'm thinking from our point of view, what could agencies provide? But generally, what could the world of work provide? What do your players want?
Thank you. So I think in answer to that question, it's a more of a wider scope, because personally, I'm in a weird situation, because like I've got a law degree, but I can't get a law job because the gap in my CV is too big. Despite the fact that I may have quote unquote executive experience, which, doing the things I have done, I can say that I have. How that directly translates into a legal environment is, a hiring manager is not going to be as confident sitting down and having an interview with me as they would somebody else, even for an entry-level role. And so I feel like the biggest thing that, like anyone, regardless of the industry, can do is just try to find as many ways as you can to get as many interns as you can through the door. Because what that does, it just creates work experience. And again, everybody that I see who struggle to find the job, the only thing they don't have is work experience, specific work experience. So for example, someone like Fred, he's in a great situation right now because he can go and say, I've worked at, I've done social media manager at Renegade and then maybe at Beatties, because he's taken a year off before he goes to university. And he's I've told him that, I won't play you until you go out and find a bunch of different stuff to do that you actually want to do relative to what you're trying to do. And so I feel like, again, it comes from the player first. Like, what do they want? And then I ask, how can we make that happen? But it's just the fact that they need to be in a situation in which they can confidently convince a hiring manager that they are the right person for the job, because they not only have the degree, but they've got the experience. And that thing about, you want an entry-level person who's done 3 years of work is just a weird situation that, I find myself in, or like I find loads of people in, and it's like, I don't understand that really. And I feel like that's more a function of just wider society and just how things have been in the past. However, that being said, it is a lot down to the individual that comes in the door, because, if you ask anyone who plays for me right now what they want to do, they're going to say, I want to play football. And so convincing them that, there are other worthwhile activities you can be doing alongside playing football is probably one of the biggest things that I have to battle with, because like a football career is short, really. Like most of us in this room are going to live close to 100 years, and you only really can play competitively for about 15 of those. So what are you going to do for the 60 or 70 odd years that you're just going to be wandering around the earth? And so, yeah, I feel like, going back directly to your question, it's more about being able to provide as much experience as you can to as many people as you can, and doing so in a way that's honest, with the intention that, you might not be here 6 months, 12 months, 24 months from now, but we're doing this so that you have the opportunity to go and be somewhere else and do that. Yeah, no worries.
Mine's more of almost like a 2-part question. You mentioned the American culture with college sports and then professional sports, which is definitely valid. I don't think it's a conversation that's had enough. I remember kind of in high school when you're playing football matches, and maybe the odd 1 or 2 people will come, or like your girlfriend will come and watch you, and all of a sudden you turn into Cristiano Ronaldo. But is like the aim. So my question with that is the aim for Renegade FC to almost become a house of all these different sports that can kind of, like I say, house your crickets, your rugbies, your football, and almost become like an academy where all of these different sports live under one umbrella, and it becomes something that I guess brands can then look at and kind of go to and try and elevate, because this is where everything is happening, type of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's the grand vision, is to be able to be that space in which, if you're a kid, maybe like you're 14, 15, 13, 12, when you say, you know what, like I wanna play sports, I wanna be a professional athlete, and then your parents are gonna go, okay, go play for Renegade, because they know that, you know, ultimately they're gonna get the best in terms of their sporting background, like, but they're also gonna be looked after in terms of their future is gonna be protected. And again, like going back to my own history, I was in year 11, so I must have been 15, and I went up to Scotland to play for a club called Stirling Albion. 15 years old, scrawny little guy, centre back, playing men's football. And so again, context, my dad used to be a football agent. He's a lawyer, so technically he describes himself as a solicitor, but really he was just being an agent. Like, he was just, you know, doing lawyers things and just wrangling the rules and stuff. And so he had about 7 players that he was looking after at the time, and Stirling Albion was going through administration, and they released half of their first team, so they needed players. And so he sent up 7 players, and one of them dropped out. So I begged him. I was like, why not? Just send me. Like, you've got no one else. Do you know what I mean? You just got an empty plane ticket. So he's like, all right, cool. So I went up there, 2 weeks, had the trial, came back, you know, okay, I'm starting year 11 now, but I'm thinking, what happened with that club? Stirling Albion. And then my dad goes, I don't know. I pestered him. And then he turned around and he goes to me, he goes, yeah, they were interested in you. And I was like, what? And he's, yeah, they were interested. And then, and then he said to me, like, I said no. I was like, what why? Why would you say no? And he goes to me, like, I need you to focus on your GCSEs. I said to him, bro, it's Scotland. They've got GCSEs in Scotland. What's wrong with you? But it's just the fact that, again, he was more Nigerian. You're going to be a lawyer or an engineer or a doctor. Despite the fact he actually played football professionally himself. So I find that mildly hypocritical, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, so I feel like, in answer to your question, yeah, it's my hope, my ambition that ultimately, like, it may not be Renegade itself, but at least we would have aspired enough people to replicate the model that, you know, it elevates the whole grassroots community. So, like, there isn't a gap between, you know, just 15-year-olds playing at, I don't know what club is near me, Tower Hamlets Football Club, and 15-year-olds at Man City or Barney or wherever else. And because that gap right now is huge, that there's no real bridge in between. And especially if you drop out, like, nobody goes back up, except, you know, the odd stories you hear from people who made it from non-league. But again, they've all usually played, like Jamie Vardy played academy football for 15, 16 years. And so, you know, scouts are going to be more interested in that. But also, outside of football, I feel like the culture around sports in general it's not great in this country, really, to be honest. I mean, like, there's this, I don't spend a lot of time on TikTok, but when I am on there was this one school in South Africa that keeps popping up, right? And they've got like a live band, and for their games, they've got the whole school just up in the rafters, and they remix songs like, I don't know, like a Kanye West song or a Future song, and they've just, you know, got the craziest vibe. And I'm like, that is what it should be. And so I didn't mention it here, but one of the initiatives I'm trying to start is called FAC, which is Football as a Carnival. So, like, my thing is, I want people to turn up maybe an hour before, get hot food, enjoy some music, turn up to the game, and the atmosphere is just bouncing. I don't care if it's tennis. For me, a silent sports environment is boring. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to go watch golf because it's boring. I want to go watch an environment in which, you know, it's the rafters, it's like a carnival or a concert or a festival. I want the roof to be bouncing off the place. Because again, why go there otherwise? It's going to be boring. And so, yeah, I feel like we've got a cup final at the end of next month. And so I'm trying to find somebody. I don't know if any of you have been to a carnival in London, like the Notting Hill Carnival, but I'm trying to find people who run the floats and see if they can bring some people down just to run some rhythms for us. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Did you have a second part to that question, or was that the question?
In terms of kind of trying to build this new culture of sport, I guess replicating the American culture, does that dictate, or does that influence rather who you decide to work with, who Renegade partner up with? For example, like here ourselves at A2 Ground being a creative agency, there's that. I feel like there would be obviously opportunities for, you know, collaborations in trying to bring something like that, like a festival vibe to a tournament that Renegade FC run, for example. So does that dictate who you work with, or is it a case of trying to go for the biggest brands like a Samsung, who might not be able to really tap into what that, that culture is?
I feel like in terms of the general overall arching strategy, obviously like where we're at right now, we're just trying to make ends meet. And so, but there's obviously a limit as to what that, for example, I don't drink. And so I haven't really reached out to any pubs or alcoholic brands or in the area, which that would be the most logical place to go to. Because I mean, if you follow football, you're probably going to do so in a pub. Do you know what I mean? But like because I personally don't drink, and a drinking lifestyle isn't one in which represents like sports in general, I personally don't feel like the two are close enough linked to justify that connection. And so, yeah, I think but like you said, it depends on the situation. And so if, for example, I was trying to, I don't know, get sponsorship for like a summer five-a-side tournament, like just a pop-up tournament, for example, then yeah, I'll be open to different things there, because again, the intention there is a bit different. And I feel like if going back to the sports group situation within like the academies or like the women's or men's teams or whatnot, I feel like because it's more decentralized in terms of the structure, where you're able to be more specific and targeted in the way in which you interact with brands, and it's not just like a blanket sponsorship. So okay, come and sponsor our kits and I'll put you on everything. It doesn't really make sense to me. So like I'd rather be a lot more specific and nuanced in the way in which we collaborate with brands, because again, it's ultimately about creating a mutual relationship. Like as long as you're getting something out of it as well as we are, then everyone's better in the long term. Yeah. Any more? No?
Thank you, mate.
No worries.
Yeah, thanks for that, mate. I found that really interesting. I'm hoping you all did as well. Idri's going to stick around for a bit. If you do have questions you didn't want to feel comfortable saying there, come and say hi. And then, yeah, Idri's going to continue to be a part of our network. So if down the line you've got questions, like run them either through me or go straight to Idri. But yeah, thanks again.
No worries. Thank you very much.